The main library looks wrong after midnight. The brutalist slabs lose their daytime dignity and squat like a bunker, fused at the hip to the old Carnegie wing, whose arched windows reflect only green exit signs. The revolving door stutters at Maya's hip, as if reluctant to let her in. Hazel Whitcomb is already waiting beneath the service desk lamp, her hands folded on a clipboard, as neat as a ledger. Up close, Hazel smells faintly of lemon oil, and the old bindings she insists on dusting herself. "You'll find," she says, "that quiet is a kind of freight. We prefer not to move it after 2. She taps the map of the floors with a felt pen. Stacks tiers AE until 1:45. Mezzanine 5 is closed at 2. No one goes past 5 after that. Maya nods, forcing her face into a grateful intern's mask. The rules suit her. Rules make shapes out of the dark. "Got it," she says. "No one past 5 after 2. "Good," Hazel replies, the word ironed flat. "Keep your radio on. If you hear the intercom burp, ignore it. Old wiring." She glances toward the ceiling speaker as if it can hear her. Questions? A dozen, but none she can articulate without sounding like a child afraid of the hall light. "No," Maya says. She shifts her backpack higher and tries not to yawn. 72 hours of startup nerves have sanded her thoughts down to the shape of obsession's order, misshelving, the way patterns appear when she's too tired to stop them. Hazel swivels a ring of keys across the counter. The metal bites Maya's palm with institutional weight. "Welcome to Special Collections," Hazel says, almost kindly. "Make friends with order. It's the only friend that stays." Owen Price, night security, appears with a paper cup and a gentler smile. "You must be Maya." He pushes the cup toward her. "Vending cocoa. I won't tell if you won't." His uniform sits slightly off, like he dressed in a hurry. There's a nick on his knuckle shaped like a crescent. "Maya-chan," she says. "Thanks." The sweetness makes her stomach lurch, but the heat helps. Owen nods toward the Stack's door. "First tour? I'll walk you to aisle 1. Watch your toes. The compacts don't have mercy if you stand on the rails." Hazel's pen pauses above the ledger. "Owen, don't fill her head. She'll learn everything she needs to know." "Sure," he says. When Hazel moves off to answer a landline, he leans closer. "You'll hear about the girl in the stacks. People say she walks mezzanine 5 around 3. Looks like bad security footage of a person who isn't there. It's a prank, probably, but don't go looking. Doors forget how to open when you're alone." Maya snorts before she means to. "I'm on a stipend," she says. "I can't afford to get haunted." "Most people can't," he says, and that's somehow worse than a joke. They pass through the heavy door. The Stacks inhale them. Steel uprights. A low, continuous hum from the shelf motors. Paper breath that isn't the smell of rot, so much as a damp sweetness, like paste. The air is cool and motionless. Green exit lights stipple the ceiling every 30 feet, steady as metronomes. Maya has always liked dials. They propose a problem with a solution. Find where it goes, put it there. The shelf ranges are compact motorized. Each row on a metal track. Each track a promise of movement. She follows Owen's pointing hand tier A, philosophy and psychic research, and runs her fingers lightly along the spines as she walks. The way you touch a banister you don't trust. Safety bars at knee height, Owen says. He bumps one with his boot. The motor sighs and stops, a beast settling. Emergency cranks at the end caps. If the motors glitch, you use the crank and swear creatively. He peels off toward the elevator bank, 2 fingertips lifted in a wave. Radio if anything's weird, or if it's normal. Normal gets lonely. Maya clips the radio to her belt and looks down the long lane of 130's metaphysics into parapsychology. The first task waiting on her cart is simple. Reshelve a small pile that some day shift scholar abandoned in a study carrel. She thumbs the top volume open as she walks. Anomalous cognition. theories and trials, library binding stiff, its checkout pocket brittle with age. At the end of the aisle, a book drop slot yawns like a mouth. Out of habit, Maya glances in. It's empty. She sets the book back on the cart and reaches for the call number key she keeps tucked into her lanyard sleeve. Something slams behind her. A clanging bang ricochets down steel, a single rude note that hurls her into a flinch knee against shelf, heart punching her ribs. Her cart squeals. She whirls. The book drop has spit a children's picture book onto the return cart, without anyone there to feed it. Its cover shows a child holding a lantern made of folded paper, mouth in a small round O as if about to sing. Maya steps closer. The date due slip is crisp and tan, the old kind with rubber stamp boxes. Most are blank. One is stamped in purple with complete confidence. Due, Mar 1997. She frowns. Some student found an ancient item in an office, maybe. It happens. Professors forget to check things back in. She flips the book over. A barcode that doesn't exist in the current system. A stamp bearing the library's old seal. But the newest stamp is not old at all. Someone has added another line in neat black ink, the type too clean to be a stamp. Due. Tomorrow, 3:17 a. Her skin tightens at the back of her neck, the way it always does when the pattern closes around her. 3:17. A number like a cough. She is about to lift the book to look again when another slip flutters from between the pages of anomalous cognition on her cart. It floats with a practiced litter's grace and lands by her shoe. Maya bends and picks it up. It's a checkout card, the old index kind, edges foxed, the lines filled in by slow hands. Title: Speakers and Their Memories. Borrower's name: Shun, Maylin. Her hand goes colder than the stack air. Maylin, her legal birth name from her first case folder, lives only on documents she keeps zipped in a plastic sleeve in her apartment. She hasn't told anyone at Dunbridge. Not Hazel, not Owen, not the bursar. She flips the card over. In fine fountain pen letters, the librarian's hand has written a call number. 133.1. A speaker coughs, not her radio above her. The intercom breathes as if lungs live in the grill. One wet static intake, one soft exhale. Then a childlike voice, not quite child, but high and deliberately careful, as if imitating an adult whispers. Reshelve me. The whisper comes not from the speaker she's staring at, but from the one behind her. Maya turns so fast her vision ladders. The aisle remains itself, steady green lights. Paper, the faint lemon thread Hazel leaves behind. She breathes through the reflex. She is not a person who startles at ductwork noises. She is a person who solves where things go. Okay, she says to no one, to the card in her hand, to the aisle, to the voice. Okay. She slides anomalous cognition free of the cart and walks the numbers, counting 133.09, 133.1, 133.1. A Speakers and Their Memories is already on the shelf. Fourth from the end, a dull olive buckram. It is not the exact copy. It is a ghost sibling from the same run. She sets the card in the place where a pocket would go and feels foolish for the ceremonial care of it. The care steadies her. Safety test, she tells herself. She presses her shin against the knee bar at the edge of the aisle. The motor huns obediently to a stop. She steps into the lane between compacts and lays her hand on the spines to feel the vibratory life of the machines. See? She says aloud to the phantom of Owen's grin. Merciful when you ask nicely. The shelf to her right moves an inch, not the full glide, not the smooth breath of a motor traveling its rail. Just a single stutter forward, not enough to trigger the safety bar she's no longer touching, just enough to close the aisle by a collar button. Maya's body decides before her mind does. She slides sideways out of the lane, shoulder scraping the end cap, breath knotted at the base of her throat. The motor hums on for an impossible second after the shelf stops, like a singer finishing a note with closed lips. She stands still until the hum erodes into the building's ordinary white noise. She puts her hand on the end cap where the emergency crank lives. Metal is metal. Steel is steel. She tells herself this in the same tone she once used as a kid in strange houses, counting slats in the blinds until the creak on the stairs became a step she could name. Her radio hisses against her belt. She startles anyway. Everything copacetic, Maya? Owen's voice. Calm, just this side of amused. My board says Tier flexed. She swallows. Power surge? Probably. He doesn't fill the space with ghost stories. You need a hand? I'm good, she says. Just met a book with commitment issues. That's the worst kind. Ping me if it happens again. The green exit sign at the end of the aisle blinks. It shouldn't. They are steady by design. Blink, blink, blink. Pause, blink. The pattern repeats. Steady as a heartbeat under a stethoscope. Maya has learned not to trust the first thing her tired brain offers, but it offers Morse before she can swipe it away. She doesn't know Morse. Not really, only the crude impression of it, the idea of a language tapping from inside a wall. She makes a note on the small spiral she carries. Exit blink pattern record. Decode later. The act of writing the blunt graphite, the scratch of it, turns fear into a task. On her way back to the service desk to log the motor hiccup, she passes the book drop cart again. The children's lantern book sits on top where it landed, but something has changed. She can't name the change until she touches the do slip again and realizes the new INK. Do. Tomorrow, 3:17 a.m., has bled a small crescent of black into the paper, as though laid down only seconds ago. Hazel looks up from her ledger when Maya sets the incident sheet on the counter. Problem? Motor shutter on Tier A, Maya says, forcing her voice into dull competence. It stopped on the bar, but shuddered. I wrote it up. Hazel reads the line once and initial scribbles it. The compacts have moods, she says. The contractor swears they don't, which is how I know they do. Her eyes flick to the picture book. Where did you get that? Book drop spit it. Old barcode. Old stamp. Maya shows her the slip like she's showing a bite. Someone added a 2-time. Hazel's mouth tightens a fraction. Facilities is replacing the drop this month. She takes the book with 2 fingers and lays it aside, separate from the normal intake flow. If you hear the intercom, ignore it. I did, Maya says, and feels at once childish and mutinous. She tucks the old checkout card into her pocket without thinking. It feels like a talisman, a thing with weight and a name. Hazel returns to her ledger. Close Tier A at 1:45. Don't go past 5 after that. When Maya turns, the ceiling speaker over the desk hisses again. One soft, almost affectionate exhale. Hazel doesn't look up. Back in the stacks, Maya takes the long way around to measure her nerves against her steps. She reshelves 2 Astray Philosophy hardbacks with a small punitive pleasure. You go there. You hear and lets her shoulders fall from their emergency shrug. Normal work arrives like a tide when you let it. At 1:12, something heavy thumps somewhere on Tier C. At 1:19, a steady Carol light clicks on and then off as she passes. At 1:28, the elevator dings with no one at the doors, the carriage opening on a floor that is exactly the floor it should be. Each small thing finds its ordinary explanation, and where it doesn't, Maya gives it one. That is, in the end, an archivist's job, give things a place. When she returns to 133.1 to file the last of the cart, the olive buckram of speakers and their memories stares back dully from the shelf where she left it. She touches the spine and notices something she didn't before. A small soot shadow smudge along the top edge, like the book breathed smoke sometime in its past and kept the mark the way skin keeps a scar. The intercom crackles again. Not a voice this time, but a whisper of hallway sound from somewhere else in the building. A heel on tile, a breath caught, a low hum as if someone is peering into the same speaker from a different floor. Then silence, a silence so complete she can hear the filament in the nearest exit light shiver. "Re-shelve me," the voice says, and it's not a trick of distance or echo. It's close enough to move the hair beside her ear. She turns slowly, as if not to spook it, as if fear itself is a clumsy animal. No one stands in the aisle. The voice leaves behind only its intention, which is worse. Maya checks her watch. 1:31. Her pen moves before her better sense can stop it. 3:17 appears on Du's slip. Then, below it, smaller. Who knows my birth name? She underlines birth twice and wishes she hadn't. At 1:45, she does what Hazel asked. She walks the measled green glow to the mezzanine access door and chains it with the small ritual Hazel showed her, careful with the order of the hook's wrong order, and the alarm panel bites. The sign above the door burns complacent and green. She sets the timestamp on the clipboard. MEZZ 5 closed 1:46. As she turns away, the exit light at the end of the mezzanine hallway blinks twice, pause 3 times, pause 1. Her tired brain says letters. Her other brain, the one she grew to survive foster placements, the one that kept a spare pair of socks in a Ziploc and learned. Every deadbolt in 3 houses says, noted, but not obeyed. On her way back to the desk, something small and weightless brushes the inside of her wrist. A tap like a child's question. Maya clamps down on the impulse to jerk away and looks instead at her own hand. The skin is cold where the touch was. No one stands close enough to have made it. She picks up her cart handle and remembers Owen's odd kindness. Normal gets lonely. She makes a decision, so it doesn't make her. She will not go to 5 after 2. She will not talk to speakers. She will finish Tier I then. She will go home and sleep enough hours that when her brain offers patterns, she can tell them no. But she slides the old card deeper into her pocket and keeps the Children's book in her peripheral vision as she works, as if watching it will keep it still. Order is a friend who stays, Hazel said. If that's true, then disorder is a friend who tests you. She can live with tests. At 2:00 a.m., in the middle of the olive and slate, canyon of 133.1 alone, with the hum and the faint lemon trace. Maya hears the intercom exhale for a 3rd time, and just under it, like a ghost syllable under the word, someone humming the shape of a lullaby, she doesn't. She knows. She doesn't look up. She slides a book 1 inch along the shelf until its foredge is flush with the rest and says softly, because no one is there to laugh at her, "I'll find where you go." And the exit sign at the far end of the aisle blinks once, pause once more like an answer. By 2:15, the building has the hush of a held breath. The green Esset beads still confide their non-language down the corridors, and the intercom has gone quiet, as if satisfied that she heard it once. Maya logs the Tier A hiccup, rinses her mug, and decides that if she can't sleep, she can at least fact-check. The rational act feels like rinsing her brain. Special Collections Workroom Hazel's Kingdom is a rectangle of order, flat files, a safe, a microfilm cabinet that looks like a filing priest. Maya keys in the cabinet code Hazel showed her and slides out a reel labeled Dunbridge Chronicle 1997 MARAPR. If the due slip isn't a prank, there should be some small notice and alarm drill, a wiring fault, something to shrink last hour's jump into a box she can shelve. The microfilm reader clicks on by itself when she sits. The blank projection rectangle blooms gray, then white. "Sure," Maya murmurs. "Be helpful." She threads the reel, wings until March, and lets the crank sing in her fingers. Pages flicker like a fast flipbook until columns settle. Minor electrical fire, contained in main library, no injuries reported. Brief after-hours disruption. No bylines. Someone has blacked out the staff photographer credit with a felt tip rectangle reproduced in halftone. The single photo shows caution tape, and the Carnegie wings arch like a lid. In the corner, a smudge that might be a lantern shape or might be a printing error. Maya leans in, nose nearly to glass. The felt tip blackout isn't a clean rectangle. It leaves a fringe like scrubbing mascara. Human hands, not policy. She prints the page to the little thermal printer by the desk. The paper comes out with the grainy smell of a dollar store receipt. The reader's screen jumps. The library's live security feed overlays the microfilm image, an angle from mezzanine 5, a long aisle, empty. A timestamp hangs on the corner, 2:43 a.m. plus, 0:28, as if the camera believes it is 28 minutes into the future. Maya's own cart is in the frame. The handle gleams. Her key ring she recognizes the bright enamel card she bought at orientation is on the floor between rails. She doesn't move. She doesn't look at her belt to see if her keys are still clipped there. They are. She lets the idea exist. I haven't dropped them yet. The angle flickers away. Microfilm returns. The breath she didn't realize she'd trapped loosens. She forces herself to do a librarian's thing. Annotate. She writes on the printout margin. Live feed overlaid for 2 sec. Time plus 0:28. My keys on floor. The act makes it less absurd. If you can make a note, you can make a file. If you can make a file, you can test it later. Something thunks overhead. Not the clean drop of a book. A hollow ceiling noise. Maya glances up. One acoustic tile has a hairline crack. Dust powders its edge. She stands to check the counter for a stool. Before she can move, the tile gives up a triangular corner and falls, frisbee slow, to the carpet. Dust drums her hair and lashes. She squeezes her eyes shut on grit and coughs. When she opens them, something shiny lies in the dust, like a dime in a spill of flour. A paper lantern charm, cheap, child-sized, metal warmed as if from a pocket. She touches it and winces. Too warm, new warm, not fallen from a duct warm. She drops it into an evidence envelope and writes Tier SC Ceiling Lantern Charm 247. The portrait on the far wall, the Carnegie donor in oil paint. A man with a chin like a mallet wears a glass overlay to protect from dust. The grit has fogged its surface. As Maya wipes it with the side of her sleeve, the face behind the glass doesn't track with its reflection. For a blink, the painted eyes look not where the reflected eyes do. Then logic catches up with the trick of light, and the two align. She sets the sleeve down and laughs once too loud in the empty room. Pattern brain, she tells the portrait. It says nothing, which is the portrait's primary skill. Footsteps scuff in the hall. Owen appears in the doorway with a respectful knock on nothing. Report said you printed something? From the Chronicle. Minor fire. She hands him the thermal print. He squints. Huh. Felt tip, he says, seeing what she saw. Blackout on a byline, she says. Not a machine redaction. Do I tell you the part where the cameras act cute, he asks, or do I wait until you find out yourself? Maya raises a brow. He holds up his phone. Caught this on the mezzanine feed 3 minutes ago, he says. He doesn't send it yet. He holds it where she can choose to look or not. She looks. A still shows an aisle ghosted in greenish night. At its vanishing point, a figure, blurred as if in motion, head slightly down, hands at pockets. The canvas jacket is exactly Maya's she bought it secondhand for $6 and mended the cuff herself in thread a shade too dark. The timestamp reads 3 hours 17 minutes and 0 seconds. The face is a smear of pixels with a hint of glasses glare. Maya feels at once embarrassed and oddly protective of the image. Could be anyone, she says, and hears herself. Weak. A lot of people wear jackets. A lot of people stand like that when they're cold. Owen nods as if they've both agreed to leave the thought unpuzzleable. Cameras do that sometimes, he says. Grab future stills when the server burps. Our IT guy says timestamps drift. I say that's a story you tell children. He pockets the phone. You okay? Ask me at 3:18, she says. He lifts his chin toward the staff door. Hazel's making circuits. If she asks, you're doing work. His tone squares the word into something that could be defended. He leaves. The work remains. Maya returns to the reel and advances to April. A small notice catches her eye. Friends at the library announce. Midnight readathon with lantern walk. The grainy photo is a cluster in the Carnegie Rotunda. Students smiling with paper lanterns. A row of older faces behind them. Faculty or staff. One is Hazel 10, maybe 15 years younger, her hair darker, mouth in the same firm line. On her lapel, a lantern pin. Maya prints this too and circles Hazel's face with the pencil's gentlest line. The caption credit is Photo, Advancement, no byline to erase. The workroom door sighs. Hazel steps in, ledger under her arm, lemon oil scent imperceptibly sharpened by sweat and a long day. You're industrious, she says, not unkind. Her gaze flicks to the microfilm, the printouts, Maya's evidence envelope with the tiny charm tucked at one corner. I wanted context, Maya says. It's a librarian's word. It's harder to discipline someone for wanting it. Hazel looks at the April piece. That was a silly night, she says. We made cocoa in the rotunda. Someone tripped the breaker. Paper lanterns everywhere. Fire marshal nearly fainted. And March? Maya asks, tapping the minor electrical fire item. Wiring in the sub-basement used to be creative. Hazel's smile edits out the past's rough syntax. Facilities fixed it. The byline's blacked out, Maya says, as if remarking on weather. Strange choice. You're new enough to think the Chronicle was ever fact-checked, Hazel says lightly. Then, almost as an aside, watch your neck in the stacks. Drafts. The intercom above the doorway burps one small bubble of sound. Hazel doesn't glance up. And please, she adds, voice cool shy of warning, don't let urban legends eat your hours. Undergraduates tell each other stories so they can be frightened together. We have enough frightening in reality. Maya thinks of the child voice in the intercom, the due time in fresh ink, the future security still in Owen's pocket. Understood, she says. Good. Hazel allows the conversation to be complete. Finish your cart. Mezzanine 5 is closed. She rests a fingertip on the adoption of rules between them. Make friends with order, Miss Chun. Left alone, Maya breathes past the pressure Hazel leaves. A gravity more than a weight. There is a thing she can do to make the patterns answer without violating the rule about Mezzanine 5. Shelve. She returns to the tier cart and moves down the aisles, letting her hands do their calm work. Tonight, the misshelved volumes aren't random. A Dewey spy novel 813. Squats in philosophy 100s. A pop psych paperback 158. Idols among theology 200s. In 3 aisles running, the strays form a breadcrumb path that docent to read as numbers so much as direction. Each wrong book sits one shelf end closer to the mezzanine door. Someone or something is pointing. Noted, Maya says to the air, to herself, to the possibility that the stacks want her to be a needle pulled toward thread. She corrects each misshelving with a firm push that feels like defiance and consent at once. At 2:59, as she is kneeling to nudge a stray collection of paranormal essays back into 133.1, the green exit lamp at the end of the lane blinks a new pattern. 2, pause. 3, pause 1. She copies it in her spiral and draws a slash beside it. May correspond to SEA. Learn Morse before breakfast. Something shifts in the corner of her eye motion. Just motion. She looks up and catches. Through the mesh of two aisles, the donor portrait's glass again, glossy in a light that should not reach it. In its reflection, the exit lamp does not blink when the real one does. A beat later, they sink, as if the reflection had to think about it. Pattern brain, she says again, but softer now. Laughter would feel like touching glass too hard. Her radio whispers. Heads up, Owen says. IT says the Mez feed might be glitching at 317, of course. If you see anything cute, don't chase it. Doors forget. Copy, Maya says. She touches the enamel key fob at her belt like a talisman. Her fingers find only the clipped belt, not the ring. Cold slides down her spine. She checks the other side, then kneels. The keys are still there. She was touching the wrong clip. Her hand shakes anyway. The image of the future still has nested somewhere in her nerves. She finishes the cart with the stubborn focus of a runner on the last hill. At 3:06, she passes the Carnegie Rotunda. The donor portrait's glass looks properly null. The floor keeps its own creak memories. A student chair left askew at closing time points like an arrow to the stairwell up. She doesn't climb. Hazel's rule holds her like a palm on the chest. Instead, she detours to the admin corridor. The incident binder for facilities hangs on a hook. She flips to 1997 and finds a photocopy of a report whose middle paragraph is painted black with a heavy marker. Above the blackout, typed, "Alarm panel malfunction. Second exit secured pending inspection. No signature. No inspector's name." The photocopied initial lines bleed, as if from too many trips through warm rollers. Maya snaps a phone photo, knowing it's a small insubordination. In the hall, the Carnegie portrait is visible through the window in the door. In the safety glass warp, the donor's lapel looks like a lantern pin. The clock over the staff sink clicks its second hand to 3:16. The building's hum ramps up, or else she only now hears how it has been ramping all along. She touches the notch of her collarbone, where her pulse insists on being counted. When the hand clicks into 3:17, nothing dramatic happens. No shelf shouts shut, no siren. Only the faintest pop from a ceiling speaker somewhere in the mezzanine, like a mouth deciding not to speak. Her phone buzzes on silent one message. From Owen. "You at the desk? I'll send you something now. Don't go up." She is at the edge of the rotunda. She can see the chained mez door from here. She texts back, "Here." The M-bus arrives. A still from mezzanine 5's main aisle, identical to the one he showed her earlier, but sharper. The figure near the vanishing point has turned slightly, as if hearing something. The canvas jacket wrinkles exactly where hers does when she turns. The shoulder seam sitting off by a thread's width. The time stamp reads 3 hours, 17 minutes, and 3 seconds. In the bottom left corner of the frame, a shiny speck glints between rails. Keys. Maya looks down at her belt. Her ring is there. She touches it like a superstitious athlete touching a doorway. She answers Owen. Still here. A ceiling tile in the rotunda ticks as it settles, a sound so modest it feels like a courtesy. The intercom does not speak. The exit lights keep their green. The binding glue smell is just glue. For the first time since midnight, Maya feels not safer, but steadier. The pattern wants her to go up. The pattern tells a story about time and exit doors and names. The pattern wants to make her into a piece that moves when it says, "I'll move when I choose," she tells the jaloused silence. She files the printouts. She pockets the tiny lantern charm. She goes back to work. When she passes 133.11 last time, the olive buckram of speakers, and their memories has shifted a finger's width, as if pushed to the edge to be easier to find. She straightens it until its foredge is flush with the row, and for the second night in a row, tells the stacks, "I'll find where you go." The exit light at the end of the aisle blinks once. Pause. Once more. Yes. At 3:19, the library's hum settles into a pitch that feels like a suggestion. Maya finishes the last of the cart and tells herself to be done. She will file the incident slips, rinse the dust from her hair, go home, sleep like a person who believes rooms stay the same in the dark. Then she notices the breadcrumb again. Somebody has been lazy or deliberate. A thin chain of wrong books edging toward the mezzanine corridor. A paperback of Pop Psychology 158 is snuggled into 200s. A mass-market ghost story 813 has been tucked into 100s with a guilty slant. A true crime anthology 364 perches at the end of 130s like a toe over a line. It is exactly the kind of drift she has already corrected once tonight. It is exactly the kind of drift that, if left alone, will itch her sleep like a tag in a shirt. Maya gathers them, 3 wrong colors against institutional buckram green, and walks. The corridor to mezzanine 5 is the kind of empty that feels full. The chain hazel set at 146 still loops the handle in the correct order hook. Clip. Hasp so cleanly it looks decorative. The exit light above it stares green and polite. She turns away because she promised herself and because promises train the body. As she does, the exit light at the far end of the corridor blinks 2, pause 3, pause 1. She writes it in her spiral without stopping. Between the chain and the older Carnegie wing, there is a stretch of wall paneled in pegboard and sound-dampening fabric. Behind it, a maintenance shaft or a storage wedge. She has walked this hall all night. She has failed to notice the fine black scuff at knee height, where a rolling ladder has brushed the fabric. The way the pegboard grid is slightly misaligned over 3 feet near the floor, as if the wall were once opened and badly sutured. On the last wrong book's inside cover, a day-handed reader has scribbled a doodle of stairs. It's nothing, just graphite fidgets. She turns the page to the title leaf and laughs once at herself. The scribble continues faintly onto the title page where the pen pressed through, and half a stare dangles into the page margin like a hint that forgot what to hint. Pattern grain, she says, but she is already kneeling. The pegboard's lower corner gives when she presses her thumb into an old staple hole. Something flexes behind it. Not a door. Not that generous. A panel. She wedges nails under the edge and peels it away like a bandage. Behind it, a dark 3-step wedge of stairs descending into a space too thin to be a room and too long to be a closet. The kind of architect's compromise that only makes sense when budgets threaten art. A breath of air leaks up from below, cooler, metallic, with a sour note of old water and cold dust. The whisper she heard in 133.1 feels closer in this air, as if sound itself enjoys certain altitudes. You're not going past 5, she reminds herself. She is not. There is no past 5 here. This is between 5 and 4, a scene. If rooms are bodies, she is crawling along a scar. The panel leaves a mark on her knee when she squeezes through. Her radio scrapes metal and squeals. She clicks the volume down and tells herself this counts as work. If there is a hazard here, facilities should know. If there is a story here, the story is easier to carry if you find it yourself. The steps end on a catwalk the width of her shoulders. To the right, a dead zone opens. A narrow lane between the backs of 2 compact ranges. A service aisle that doesn't appear on the floor map. The steel underfoot is perforated in a diamond grid. Below, the library's innards breathe ducts, pipe, wire bundles tied like veins. Directly across, a second hatch stands at shin height, unmarked save for a smudge of soot where hands have pushed. Between them, in the gray slant of a single emergency bulb, somebody has scratched initials into a support strut. EH, the letters are careful, done with something harder than a coin. A child's strength, maybe, or a patient fingernail grown to a tool. Next to the initials, wired to the strut with a twist of coat hanger, hangs a melted plastic charm, a paper lantern shape warped into a tear. When Maya cups her hand to it, She can smell the sweetness of burned sugar trapped in the plastic. Her phone drops from 3 bars to none, then to the white crossed-out circle that means no service. She is preparing to slide the phone to airplane as a precaution when it wakes itself. Lock screen, play icon, and then Cora's podcast pours into the aisle without signal. It is the episode about Dunbridge's unsolved disappearances. A piece Cora mostly abandoned because sources went cold. Cora's voice arrives clean, not cached compressed, as if the phone were performing a radio play of the memory. And campus officials maintain that the 1997 incident at the library was minor, Cora says, though students in archived yearbooks mention a lantern walk that was abruptly canceled. We reached out to. Maya taps volume down. The phone ignores her for 2 sentences and then obeys. In the newly thinned quiet, something clicks like a switch in the walls. You shouldn't be here, she tells herself. You are here. The aisle answers with the gentle slam of a compact range locking into place somewhere she can see. She angles sideways into the service lane. The aisles on either side are not the aisles on the map. They run deeper, as if the stacks had learned a trick with perspective. She holds her elbows in and tries not to think about earthquakes or fires. Trying not to think about fire in this place feels like trying not to count heartbeats in a hospital. At the first end cap, an emergency crank hangs in its slot. Relief grazes her skin. A machine you can touch is a machine you can move. The crank socket has blackened edges where heat touched it once. She keeps walking, left foot, right foot, testing each section of steel before she trusts it. When the catwalk delivers her to a slit of an opening, she tilts through it and drops into a lightless notch between compacts, her shoulder blades kissing steel. Re-shelve. The intercom begins, far away in the building. And in the notch, 5 inches from her ear, a dry breath answers with its own syllable. Her. Maya's back bumps steel. She can feel the hum through the panel, like the aftersound of a struck tuning fork. She closes her eyes because sight is lying here. Touch tells the cleaner truth. The aisle is just wide enough for knees and shoulders. The floor grate is smooth from service shoes. Her hand finds the guide rail. The sleeve of her canvas jacket snags on her burr. The exact snag that wrinkles an Owen's still. Okay, she says. Her voice is not steady, but it exists. Okay? She realizes what the future still didn't to show. Why her keys would be on the floor. The safety bar is at her knees. She tests it. The motor's hum softens, as promised, when she presses. Let go, and it returns. She edges forward. Her ring of keys bumps the end cap and rolls warm against her thigh. She tucks them under her palm. When she reaches the spot where the aisle widens half an inch, her elbow grazes the base of a security camera no one has admitted exists in this blind. She looks up. Its lens stares blind glass. Directly ahead, a hairline glow not unlike an exit light spills in a seam where a door shouldn't to be. She inches toward it because light is promise and corridors are questions. The glow halos a generic emergency exit placard mounted backwards. The door opens inward into another aisle, no stairwell, no hall. Another lane of compacts, perfectly parallel to the one she is in. For one blink, the sign's letters reflect in the steel like a misprint. Exhibit. She blinks, and they are exit again. A sound rattles the radio on her belt. A maintenance voice mid-syllable, Tier C to Mez, and then a child's cough, soft and trying not to be heard. The radio doesn't know how to play that sound. It hisses in protest and falls silent. Maya's body recognizes panic 2 seconds before her mind writes the word. The hum beneath her feet picks up the note of threat. She turns to reverse out of the notch and feels the range behind her shudder toward her, just enough to change the air. She thrusts her palm to the safety bar. The hum dips. She sidesteps like a crab to the emergency crank at the end cap, because touch has been true so far, and touching is the way you tell machines you exist. The end cap's plastic cover flips up. The crank socket is there, black and oval. She fishes for her keys to get the small square adapter Hazel made interns carry, the one that makes crank. Meet socket without stripping. Her fingers meet pocket, then air, then the plastic trim where a pocket should be. She has been counting on a tool that is not where she left it. Her hand finds the keys 2 inches higher, caught in the jacket's cuff, where she hooked them without thinking during the crawl. She pulls. The canvas cuff holds like a loop tightening around prey. Her hand jerks with it, and the ring pops free, and bounces. The enamel fob flashes once in the slender light slit and skitters straight to the rail between panels. The ring lands so precisely between the teeth that the bounce stops like a sentence cut in half. Maya freezes, palm still on the safety bar. She knows exactly what the still that Owen sent looks like. She is living inside the rectangle of it. Don't, she tells the shelf. She is not sure who she is asking. Her phone, at 0 bars, chooses this as the moment to bring Cora back, as if conscience had a call time. And one theory, Cora's recorded voice says from Maya's pocket, is that the stack's fail-safes never failed. That someone simply told them to stop recognizing a certain safety input. The bar at Maya's knees presses into her with the slow commitment of a person making up their mind. The aisle to her right nibbles inward an inch. She thinks of Hazel's brisk chain and Owen's warning that doors forget. She thinks of the redacted line in the facility's binder. Second exit secured pending inspection. She thinks the thought she has been fondling and refusing for 2 chapters. And in thinking it, she lets herself move. Someone told the stacks how to forget. Not me, she says. Not tonight. She drops into the floor like a diver. Her shoulder scrapes steel. Her ribs knock grating. She wriggles the way she once wriggled into a hide space behind a Foster dresser when a fight slammed into hallways. Her hand loses the safety bar, and in that instant the end caps on both sides advance another inch in a double blink. The aisle's breath clipped. She snags the leg of the emergency crank mount and drags herself through the last, 2 feet like a letter pulled along a typewriter. The panels kiss her back pocket and hold for a heartbeat before retreating, an animal's nudge that wants to be a bite. She collapses into the catwalk with a graceless sprawl and finds, with the panicked hands of someone counting at a bus stop, that her keys are not with her. They shine 2 aisles back, a coin glint between rails exactly where the server's odd drift said they would be. For an instant, she considers diving back. She does the math. The time it would take, the press of steel on soft parts, the fact that the hum is now cheerful, the way a child can be cheerful about a game that scares you. She does the adult thing. She leaves them and tells herself she will come back with Owen and the kind of tool that overrules obedience with leverage. Something small taps the inside of her wrist as she reaches for the hatch cold, precise, child-sized, the exact measure of attention that says, "Here I am." Her whole arm jerks, and she snatches it back as if from a burner. "Reshelve her," the whisper says again, from the dark where she cannot fit, and this time the word "her" has a person attached to it in the way a card has a name. Maya can feel that name like a magnet under the table drawing a paperclip EH. The initials press against her thoughts with the pressure of a small forehead against a closed door. She backs up the wedge stairs into the corridor light, her breath shimmying high in her chest. The pegboard panel leans where she propped it, a cartoon of everything looking normal. She presses it back into place and smooths the edges with the heel of her hand until the misalignment is what it was before, subtle, ignorable, unless you are looking. The intercom above the staff corridor gives one wet exhale and then holds its breath. In the rotunda, the donor's glass keeps its blank, faithful reflection. Maya checks her belt anyway. The clip sits empty. She swallows the reflex to apologize to Hazel's keys, as if they had feelings too. Mezzanine 5 is still chained. The rule stands. She has not broken it. She has just traced the seam. On the way to the desk, she composes the smallest true version of what she could write. Incident report. Service panel discovered near Mez corridor. Unsecured. Compact aisle in service lane shuttered while testing safety. Recommend evaluation. She will not include voices in a memo, but she will include the existence of the panel, because if no one says it exists, then it can be the kind of place where a child writes initials and a lantern melts, and a door becomes an exhibit. At the desk, she finds a spare lanyard and a spare door key, the kind that opens public spaces, but not special collections, not the safe, not the places that matter. She pins the spare to her shirt pocket, like a confession and a plan. Make friends with order, Hazel said. Order is a friend who stays if you do the work a friend requires. Friends also introduce you. The stacks have introduced her to a person she only knows by letters and a lullaby. If she is to be haunted, and if haunting is simply institutional memory, refusing to be erased, then she will be haunted usefully. On her way back down Tier A, the olive buckram of speakers and their memories leans one finger's width forward again, ready to be taken as if someone behind the shelf were holding it out by its spine. Not yet, Maya tells the book. I have to get my keys. The exit lamp at the end of the aisle blinks 1, pause 1. She writes it down. Then she writes under it in smaller letters, so the line won't look alone. E.H. on strut. Melted lantern. Door that lies. She caps the pen and keeps walking until the hum sounds, like a building being a building again, and not a thing that is learning the shape of her footsteps. By 4, the library has the clean tiredness of a hospital at shift change. Maya's hands still remember the grit of the catwalk. Her wrist keeps the ghost of a cold tap. Her belt keeps nothing keys gone, so she pins the spare door key to her pocket and returns to the only ground that has ever stabilized her, records. Special Collections is a rectangle of calm, lit by one task lamp and the low smear of the night custodial light through the hall glass. The lemon oil Hazel favors lingers like a rule. Maya pulls the accession laptop close and types her legal birth name the way you check a superstition. Shun Mei Lin. The OPAC returns polite zeros. Authority files. Nothing. She tries variant forms. Chun M. Chun child. Unknown minor. The system, unmoved, suggests a cookbook author and an emeritus mathematician. She knew it would be like this. Adoption lives under seals, not in OPACS. But universities hoard adjacent paperwork newsletters, event logs, campus police memos that stick to boxes they don't belong in. The trick is not to find the adoption. The trick is to find the misfile. She wheels the vertical file marked University Archives unsorted to the work table. Its manila folders are a taxonomy of neglect. Events, MISC. 1990s. Facilities, incidents. Advancement. Friends of the library. She tucks a strand of dust into her bun and begins the archivist's meditation. Pull, glance, refolder, note. The action steadies the adrenaline left over from the scene behind mezzanine 5. The advancement folder coughs up a glossy redathan flyer paper, lanterns sketched around the Carnegie Rotunda plus a stapled set of sign-in sheets. Maya smooths the top page and feels the pulse skip in her throat. The heading reads, Children's Literacy Night, March 14th, 1997. A column for child's name, one for guardian, one for time in time out. Halfway down, in a tidy hand, Maylin, Maya, guardian, Evelyn Hart, 7:18 p.m. The out column is blank. Her mouth dries. She remembers nothing like this because you can't remember what you weren't given. The name sits in ink anyway, black and easy. Evelyn Hart. The initials from the strut, the pressure behind reshelve her, the small heat of the melted lantern suddenly, not a legend. The paper underneath clings. She peels it up. Another copy of the same sign-in sheet lies beneath duplicated with the faint crop marks of a copier. Except on this one, the baby photo clipped to the corner, Polaroid, Scotch tape puckered, shows a toddler swaddled in a checkered blanket, not the striped one in the top copy. The accession number rubber-stamped bottom right reads UA 97114.02 instead of 1. Somebody made 2. Someone practiced authority control on reality. She should stop and breathe, but the logic has momentum. She tucks both copies into an evidence sleeve, annotates with a thin archivist pencil she likes for the way it resists drama, and slides the rest of the advancement folder aside. The next folder is facilities, incidents. Inside, a photocopied report identical to the one she glimpsed in the hallway binder. Alarm panel malfunction. Second exit secured, except here the black rectangle has warped the paper like heat. Taped to the top is a 3-5 index card, edges brown and bubbled, hand-typed, Lantern Society, sub-basement access. Someone has underlined access in the pale blue ink of a desk fountain pen. A name initialed in the corner. H.W. Hazel Whitcomb. Her finger rests there longer than it needs to. She should photograph the card. She does. She should put the original back. She doesn't. She tucks it into the same sleeve as the sign-in sheets, because if the library has taught her anything in 2 nights, it's that things disappear when they are too close to truth. The card catalog by the north wall, an antique Hazel refuses to decommission, draws her without reason, which is to say with her whole reason. Catalogs no aliases. They are how the past tells you it still has more names. She pulls open the drawer she opened last night to prove to herself it still sticks its CD. Tonight, it slides clean. Inside, behind rows of typed cards, smelling of old ink and handling, a single card sits proud of the file like a book pushed forward on a shelf. Shun, Mei Lin. See also donor files. Visitor ledgers. The air moves. Not a breeze, there are no breezes here, but a shift, like a big animal in a nearby room standing up. At the far end of the case, every drawer eases out a single notch, a premonition of movement, as if the catalog is drawing a collective breath. Maya's scalp prickles. Please don't, she says, because politeness has never heard anything that can understand human tone. Ms. Chun? Maya mutters a word she would not write in the margins and turns. Hazel stands in the doorway, ledger under arm, a tidy storm system. Her gaze takes in the unsorted cart, the open catalog drawer, the evidence sleeves. She doesn't look at Maya yet. She looks at the room the way practiced administrators do and decides what it means. You're in university archives, she says. It isn't quite a question. Unfollowing leads, Maya says, from the redaffin. The 1997 event. Your pin? My pin? Hazel repeats mildly. Maya slides the Friends of the Library printout from yesterday. Across the table, the one with Hazel. Younger, wearing the tiny lantern at her lapel. The gesture buys her a second to pocket the Lantern Society card properly. Hazel doesn't pick up the print. Her attention halos the sign-in sheet. She sees the name before she lets her face show that she sees it. Then she makes her face not show anything. Those are sealed, she says, as if that settles the physics of the room. For a reason. Sealed records shouldn't be duplicated with alternate details, Maya says, keeping her voice inside its lanes. She layers the point, 01, and 2 sheets so the blanket mismatch shows like a magic trick. Why are there 2? Hazel puts the ledger down. Sometimes duplications happen in transfer, she says. Advancement was sloppy that year. You have a long night. Don't add ghosts to it. The word lands with a weight that is not the weight of superstition. Ghosts as policy. Maya realizes she is not being comforted. She is being redirected. Why is your initial on a sub-basement access card? Maya asks. She says it gently because she wants an answer, not a door closing. Hazel's eyes flick to the unsorted facilities folder, and back to Maya without touching the truth. Because I am head of special collections, she says. I sit on transfer committees. There is a lot of paper in a library. One picks up static. The glass on the small exhibitions case to their left pops. A politely shocking noise, like a knuckle cracked in church. A catalog card leaps inside the case and slaps the glass from the inside, then slides down into the hollow with a papery sigh. Hazel closes her eyes for one breath, as if praying for patience, then opens them on neutral. Drafts, she says. Maya takes the step that will either get her fired or get her an answer worth risking it. She says the name Evelyn Hart aloud between them, like a key you might try in a lock. Hazel's reaction is not performative. It is the tiny, involuntary tightening of someone choosing which truth to leave in the room. This is not your story, she says softly. You came here to learn. I am learning, Maya says. The pencil nearly snaps between her fingers. Her voice tries for calm and lands near a note she does not use. The ledger says Evelyn Hart signed me in. It did not sign me out. Hazel's mouth wants to flinch. She disciplines it into a straight line. Then it is a bad ledger, she says. And it is sealed. If you are searching for yourself, Miss Chun, the library is a cruel place to do it. She turns not to Maya, but to the card catalog. Please put the drawers back. We do not, she begins, and as if corrected, every drawer in the case slams shut in unison shuttering chord in wood and metal that makes Maya's teeth spark. They both stand exactly still while the echo runs down the aisle. Hazel places her hand flat on the catalog top like a benediction. When she speaks again, her voice has lost the cool of procedure and found a tiredness that looks like an apology from far away. Some of us did what we thought would protect people who had already been harmed, she says. We may have been wrong. She meets Maya's eyes. That admission is not a license. Maya hears two sentences at once. What Hazel is saying and what Hazel's tone says under it, that she is in the room with someone who knows and does not yet know how to live with what she knows. That kind of person can be either an ally or an administrator. That kind of person is often both. A soft burble issues from the ceiling speaker, then resolves into a whisper, like breath finding a syllable. Don't let her put you back. Not the child's tone from last night. Older, hoarser, urgent. Hazel's head tilts fractionally, as if her ear tried to turn toward the voice, and her spine told it not to. The lights blink out. Not the whole building, just the line of fluorescence over special collections, leaving the room swum in the rotunda. S-green bleed and the blue vigil of the microfilm reader S-sleep LED. In the ceiling, above the drop tiles, something walks. A series of footfalls in the light metal, small strides, a pause above the card catalog like a person listening, then forward toward the staff hall. Maya doesn't move. People get hurt moving fast in stacks. She waits until her pupils finish their grasp. The donor portrait's reflected glass in the hall is a lighthouse in miniature. It anchors. Hazel inhales through her nose, holds the breath, and turns the light back on with a key at the wall control, the kind that only staff carry. The tube lamps buzz to a kind of life. The ceiling steps are gone with the electricity. You'll be off at 7, Hazel says, as if they have not just been addressed by the room. Go home, sleep. We will talk at noon when I can find the language. I'll be here, Maya says. She picks one thing from the evidence pile, the sign-in sheet. One and slides it across. This should be where you want it, she says. Not where I found it, she keeps. 2 and the Lantern Society card, without saying she is keeping them. She will scan them before the morning eats her nerve. Hazel accepts. One like a priest receives a wafer ceremonial hesitation, then the ritual. Make friends with order, she says. Not as a command this time, but as a hope. She sets the paper in her ledger with a care that admits it can burn. When Hazel leaves, the intercom lets out one soft content exhale, as if it approves the filing. Maya wants to laugh and can't. She opens the exhibition case with the spare key, public, not the safe. Hazel would hear it otherwise, and retrieves the card that slapped the glass. In Hazel's younger hand it reads, Memory Palace Trial Fail. The same fountain pen blue as the underline on Access. The back lists subject, EA, in a script that takes pains to be administrative, not personal. She tucks the card where the Lantern Society index lives, twin-edged proofs that the experiments had a name and Evelyn Hart was the subject. Not a ghost, not a rumor. A person with a file and a trial that failed. The spare lanyard at her pocket feels thin. Somewhere in 5.5, her keys lie like a bad oracle. Somewhere under the floor, a chair rocks. Somewhere in Hazel, a practiced line is starting to overheat. Maya closes the drawers, one by one, like tucking children into bed, and copies the exit blink from the past hour into her Spiral 2-3. One under which she writes See Also, donor files from the catalog card, because if a system tells you to see also, you do. When she steps into the hall, the portrait politely offers her back to herself in green. For the length of one blink, the eyes in the paint look not at her, but at the ceiling where the steps went. Then the glass returns to reflecting what it should. Noted, she says. Noted, but not obeyed. She pockets the sleeves, switches off the microfilm, and walks toward the mezzanine corridor with her body already working out the geometry of a return. Not yet, not alone. But soon, the building has shown her its seams and told her a name. Her job, which is also her life, is to make sure names stay. By 5 the night is thin as tracing paper. The big clocks pretend it's still late, but dawn has its hand on the dimmer. Maya's shirt smells faintly of lemon oil and old paste. Her pocket is heavier with evidence sleeves and lighter by one set of keys she cannot stop feeling missing. Owen meets her in the stairwell by the staff fridge with 2 paper cups and the look of someone who chose the wrong life and is making the most of it. I brought the good cocoa, he says, which means the same machine swill as last time. Walk with me? They take the service stairs, the ones that live behind an unmarked door, and climb between the building's ribs. As they move, the lights do a cascade trick, click, click, click down the risers, as if something is descending ahead of them, snapping each switch off with polite fingers. Motion sensors, Owen says, too quickly. On the landing wall, a tiny lantern pin is sunk into the paint at shoulder height, its prongs buried like a tack. Maya pauses. Who would? She reaches toward it. Owen catches her wrist. Don't. Someone jammed it in hot. He angles a key to pry. The pin comes away with a small pop and a whisper of scorched latex. He drops it to his palm and flinches, then recovers with a grin that doesn't make it to his eyes. Warm, he says. Weird. Lantern Society? Maya asks. She means it to be a joke. It isn't. Owen doesn't laugh. He pocket palms the pin in a folded napkin. You want the version where I say I've only heard the name, he says, or the one where I tell you, I used to run tunnel checks for overtime until they made it contractor only. Both, Maya says. They come out in the loading bay, which at this hour feels like a mouth that forgot how to be a door. The air has a river's mineral to it. Owen ducks into the cage of facility shelves, unlocks a wire cupboard, and pulls a clipboard that looks like it's been chewed by decades. Visual maps. Access Sub B. The top sheet is a line drawing of the stack's underside, the pipe tunnels, the service catwalks, the goofy not-to-scale parentheses of machines, and a legend stamped in old blue ink. Lantern Society. Vigil Studies. Access. Roots. Rev. 1997. Someone has underlined VIGIL and penciled sleep deprivation. Observational. I thought that was a myth, Maya says. She means, I hoped it was a myth. Not a full-on cult, Owen says. A faculty reading group with too much budget and a need to feel like they were guarding something holy. My predecessor called them the lanterns. They did overnight vigil studies for a grant-monitored cognition while people stayed up all night in specific environments. There's a door under everything that wants to be a stage. People in these buildings will always try to put a show there. Maya turns the page. A short grant abstract is stapled to the back, copied to gray mush, and dotted with copier streaks. The header reads, Dunbridge University Advancement Pilot Grant. The title, Induced Mestic Overlays via Environmental Engramming. Under Investigators, A. Rawlings, H. Whitcomb. Deliverables, Prelim. Protocol for Memory Palace Consolidation in Non-Clinical Volunteers. Notes. Children's Night will provide naturalistic subject flows. The bottom has a stamped routing box. Advancement gives special collections, gives IRB. The IRB box is penciled later. Maya stares at the names until they blur. Dean Arthur Rawlings. Hazel Whitcomb. She wants to circle them on the paper with the pencil she used on the sign-in, to draw a line between the child's ledger and this sickly enthusiasm. She settles for photographing it, twice, and once more from an angle for shadows on the toner streaks. Do you believe any of it worked? She asks, her voice thin. I believe people get high on the sound of their own rationalizations, Owen says. They called the tunnels catacombs in memos. The one time I did an overnight for them, they had wax paper lanterns taped to the walls and made us whisper. I got a $30 stipend and a warning not to tell facilities where the new switch box was. What switch box? Owen taps the map. Manual bypass for the compacts. Staff swore it didn't exist. You needed a key that wasn't in any normal ring. Don't look at me. I never got to touch it. But if someone told the ranges to forget a safety bar at 317 on a given night, that's where you'd tell them. The intercom in the loading bay burps, catching itself before speech. They both look up like guilty altar boys. A smooth voice follows, not from the intercom, but from the concrete. Good, you're here early. Dean Arthur Rawlings has the practiced walk of a man who hates being photographed and is photographed often. His suit is perfect without joy. His left hand holds a burn cream tube he is not using. Ms. Chun, he says, as if pulling her name from a docket. Mr. Price. Stairs are for staff, not tours. Incident map review, Owen says with his citizen voice. The Mez corridor panel should be secured. The what? Rawlings asks pleasantly. He doesn't want an answer. He turns to Maya. You are my first gift of the day, he says. I am going to give you an opportunity to be sensible. Maya keeps her hands at her sides, so they don't remember being small and folded for inspection. Which is, you will stop rummaging in university archives for records that do not concern your work. You will submit any documents you copied in the course of that rummaging. You will delete any images you have made. You will refrain from contacting advancement. You will tell me if Ms. Whitcomb has shared any unusual materials with you. You will treat anything you think you know as a misunderstanding. In exchange, your assistantship continues, and no one has to call you unstable when you start telling stories about voices in the stacks. Maya hears what he's not saying. Litigation. Donor headaches. Keep the machine running. She thinks of the 2 sign-in sheet in her pocket and the sub-basement card with Hazel's initial. Good morning, Dean Rawlings, she says, because she can do phrases. I don't understand your term unstable. It's the word people use, he says lightly. I'm coaching you. It is generous to warn you what you sound like on tape. On whose tape? Owen asks. It's not wise. It's also kind. Rawlings smiles at him without teeth. Be a good man and escort her back to the desk. We'll have facilities fix whatever latch she thinks she found. We don't want any more stories running around. His radio chirps. A gravel voice answers. Sutter, one of the contract guards Rawlings likes because they say yes with their posture. On my way to Mez, we'll hunt the panel. Over. Perfect, Rawlings says, to Maya. You see? We do care about safety. As he turns, his jacket lifts enough for Maya to see the crescent of blister low on his palm, where he grips the burn cream tube. The lantern pin in Owen's napkin suddenly looks like it's smiling. Maya says, because you can't not, does a Rawlings ring a bell, Dean? Induced nestic overlays? His breath stops for a fraction. Just a hitch in his silk, then goes on. Graduate students say phrases, he says. They think phrases are power. He's almost sorry for her. Stop saying them. Work your hours. Go home. Sleep. He leaves with the practiced friendliness of someone who has already written the email that ends your job. Owen and Maya share the silence that follows like a pack of crackers. He's had that tube all week. Owen says softly. Keeps not using it. Cora, Maya says, like a name is oxygen. She texts the gentlest 911 they agreed upon months ago. You awake? Need to park near loading bay? Mike? The dots arrive and vanish. Cora's reply lands. On my way. I'll key if you want me on, or just ears. Tell her to be ears, Owen says. Rawlings has a nose for cameras. But if she records the way he talks, that will matter later, Maya finishes. If we live to later, they return through the Carnegie Rotunda. The donor portrait appears to look past them at something that isn't happening yet. Maya's phone vibrates again. A new episode of Cora's podcast has auto-updated no, not an episode, a sponsor tag. The audio plays without her pressing anything. This investigation is presented by Dunbridge Advancement. A bright voice says no human behind it, just the cheer of a machine. Together we preserve our legacy. Maya stabs pause. The player shows no waveform for the voice that just spoke. Cute, Owen says. His mouth has gone dry. Dean's canteen has hooks. I didn't put that ad, Cora texts immediately after. That's not me. Also perking now. A beat later. 2 laws, you sure? Maya writes back ears. Cora sends a thumbs up emoji, followed by a lantern. They decide to stage normalcy. Maya will go back to the desk and look like a person adjusting a schedule. Owen will pretend to be the world's most cheerful escort, and then get called away by a radio he knows how to make burp in 5 distinct ways. On the way, the green exit light does a small blink in the stairwell window 1. Pause, one like a friend tapping a code from another table. She copies it in her spiral. She is not multilingual in Morse, but she is getting fluent in intention. At the service desk, Hazel returns not as a storm, but as a weather change. Her hair is pinned tighter than usual. Her cardigan sits like a uniform. She looks at Maya without looking like she has chosen to see her. The dean, she says, is upset. He believes you've been searching sealed files. I found bad records, Maya says. I think he prefers them that way. Hazel inhales as if to say a sentence with 4 clauses, then says none of them. You should go home at 7, she says instead. You have the look of someone about to choose an action that will be hard to live with. I say that with experience. I'll rest when it's filed, Maya says. She doesn't mean sleep. She means truth. The radio on the desk cracks. Sutter's voice comes thin through electronic throat. Arrived at Mez 5. No panel. Testing compact stop bar engages. A long pause. Then faint on his open channel, a woman's voice hummed too softly for the mic, like the shape of a lullaby. Good night, Irene. Sutter stops speaking. Footsteps on perfect carpet. The radio gives one high beep you hear when a hand leaves the push to talk. Then nothing. Hazel's knuckles go white against her ledger. Owen's eyes flick up to the ceiling speaker as if willing it to pick up the rest of the song. Maya's skin crawls with the knowledge that the building can choose what to amplify. Normal gets lonely. Owen says too brightly into his own radio, trying Sutter twice. When there's no answer the second time, he makes his voice bland. I'll check cameras. Do not, Hazel says. It is the first time she has said, "Do not," in a tone that fears for someone else, and not for the library. Maya opens the evidence sleeves. They do the practical things, because practical is what keeps panic out of the efficient parts of your body. She photographs the grant abstract again, then the Lantern Society card with HW in the corner, then the sign-in. 2. She prints a normal morning schedule and pretends to discuss it with Hazel in case Cora, wearing a cheery tourist scarf, walks through the public side of the desk and lets her phone listen. Dean Rawlings reappears with a guard who calls him Sir with his jaw. "We're done with hauntings," he announces, like a man who has practiced ending stories people tell themselves. Ms. Chun will be escorted out for the rest of the shift. There's no reason to expose her to the vagaries of our older equipment for her own safety. "That's thoughtful," Cora says from the patron side, feigning a yawn over a half-lidded phone. "Do you do that for everyone who asks about donors?" She is sunshine in denim and a second-hand blazer, the phone's mic pointed at the floor. Rawlings pins her with the look he uses on reporters when he is deciding if the answer is no comment or only if you email me on Monday. "We protect our students," he says to the room. "We protect our friends. We protect our records," Hazel says, surprising herself with the emphasis on the second word. Rawlings does not look at her. The guard steps half a step toward Maya. The compact shells in Tier A make a sound that is not movement, but the pre-movement purr that lives in machines when they are deciding. Every bookish head in the room nerves toward the stacks, as if the building has cleared its throat. "Let's go," the guard says. Owen raises his radio. "Copy," he says to a call that isn't there. Then to Maya softer, "Give me an hour. We'll go to 5.5 together. I'll bring a bar and a pry and a liar's smile. We'll get your keys." Maya lets the guard walk a step ahead, so that if the aisle chooses to do something cute, it will happen to his boots first. She glances at Cora as they pass. Cora's eyes flick to the pinched burn cream tube in Rawlings' hand and back, tone adjusted. "We have his tells." At the desk, Maya gathers nothing, because she has nothing left to gather except herself and the pieces of her name. The ceiling speaker breathes as if remembering how, and then the vent above the desk clinks like a lazy coin. A small object drops through the slats and lands on the blotter light, precise, final. It is a child's bracelet, a cheap kind made of alphabet beads and elastic, the beads melted to a smoothness where letters distort. 2 are still legible. M and L, the elastic is crisp black. The heat whiff the same burned sugar scent as the lantern charm. Maya does not reach. It is the neatest thing the building has handed her yet. Proof that a child named Mei Lin was here, that something burned close enough to melt plastic and abbreviate names. Hazel makes a sound like a word she wouldn't write in the margins. Rawlings' face does nothing. That nothing says nearly everything. Maya slides an evidence envelope under the bracelet and lets it fall in by itself, so she won't imagine that her fingers made it real. "Reshelve her," the intercom whispers, almost tender, and somewhere far in the stacks, a shelf motor picks up the tune of "Goodnight, Irene," and hums it wrong. Maya looks at the bracelet and the dean and the woman who taught her to dust around first editions as if they bruise. "We will," she says, to the room, to the voice, to the girl whose initials are 2/3 of a person. "We will put her back where she belongs." Hazel closes her eyes for a count. When she opens them, she looks like a ledger that has decided to carry a number it knows is wrong until someone makes it right. Rawlings clears his throat and finds something trivial to say, because trivial is what men like him offer when the floor goes out from under them. "Do put that in the lost and found," he says. Cora's phone doesn't move, but her smile changes flavor. Owen's radio, still open, permits the gentle static of a line that has not yet decided who it will be loyal to. Outside, the dawn finally chooses. At 6, the sky has turned the color of eraser crumbs. The library hums like a machine, pretending to be asleep. Owen meets Maya at the staff door with a canvas tote that clinks. Crowbar, painter's pole with a magnet, 2 headlamps, and the world's loudest conscience, he says, tapping his radio. I brought envelopes, Maya says, because everyone brings the weapon they know. They go down the scene behind mezzanine 5, the way you go back to a house you know bites. The pegboard panel yields to Owen's pry like it has been waiting to. Cold air breathes up the wedge of stairs. Water and wire scented. Maya's pulse lifts in time with the exit blink 2 corridors away one. Pause, one as if the building were saying yes without promising to be kind. On the catwalk, the EH initials on the support look smaller than they felt last night. The melted lantern charm still exhales burned sugar. Somewhere under all this, Sutter's radio went dead. Somewhere in a range 2 aisles back, her keys glint. Keys first, Owen says. Otherwise, you'll invent ways to blame yourself for gravity. They belly into the service notch. It's narrower in daylight and waiting, which is to say it is exactly as narrow as last time. Maya's jacket catches on the same burr. The snag is a fact now, not an omen. She points where the enamel fob should be. Owen feeds the painter's pole through the sliver of aisle and fishes, careful as a surgeon with a lasso. On the 3rd pass, he snags the ring. The magnet kisses it. The teeth of the rail try to keep it the way a mouth keeps a coin. Owen braces his boots on the grate and levers a millimeter at a time until the ring slides free with the neatest click in the world. Saint Leverage, he says, handing her back a sound she didn't know she was holding. The weight on her belt is a ridiculous relief. Thank you, she says, and the words come out with an extra syllable of air. They do not leave. Getting the keys wasn't the point. It was the toll. The notch opens into a service lane that runs parallel to mapped aisles and then refuses to obey the map. Every 20 feet, stencils mark the concrete. 133.1, 398.25, 614.84. Beneath some numbers, a thin line is drawn like an underline, not under all digits, just one per cluster. When Maya transcribes the underlined digits into her spiral and lays them against a cheap-coded alphabet, it spells BURN. On the next wall, more call numbers with different underlines spell HUSH, the building's handwriting. Owen says, it sounds like a joke and not like one. The service lane kinks to a door that was painted beige once and then weathered the color of old teeth. A flaked decal says electrical. The paint around the latch is soot-warmed and bubbled, the metal distorted outward, like a breath tried to get out and couldn't. Owen works the hinges. Maya palms the cheap spare key at her chest, then slides it away. It isn't the one that matters here. They push through into a room that has learned to be small. The ceiling is a grid of rusted joists and the ghosts of drop tiles. A sagged line of strings still runs end to end. Clothespins hanging with char halos where wax paper lanterns once were. Against the far wall, a rocking chair sits blackened but not collapsed, its curved runners glossy, where heat licked them like a stove polish. A chalk diagram circles, inside rectangles scarves, one wall with calculations that have lost their chalk and kept their intent. On a steel table sit the ordinary tools of a makeshift lab. A handheld cassette recorder, the size of a fat paperback, a shoebox labeled EH Sessions, a spindle of blank tapes, 2 mugs fused to the table by melted sugar. Maya does not touch the box. She thinks of Hazel's ledger, of 1 going back and 2 in her pocket, of how paper disappears if you don't give it a name. She dons nitrile gloves and opens the shoebox with the care of a person who has only recently believed in evidence as possession. Inside are 10 cassettes in paper sleeves. On each sleeve, a date and a time. March 14th, 97, 110. March 14th, 97, 202. March 14th, 97, 317. Her breath crouches. She slides the 317 tape into the recorder and presses play, then pause. "We should do this upstairs," Owen says softly. "Not in a room that used to be on fire." She nods, but she presses Rue for a second and play again because narrative gravity is stronger than good sense. The machine jerks to life with a noise like a cricket learning to be a vacuum cleaner. Tape hiss, then voices. A woman, younger than now, the edge of authority softened by coaxing. "Evelyn, when I say room, what do you see?" Another woman, steady and sunk with the tiredness of someone practicing a new skill while carrying a child. Children's nook. Green rug. Paper lanterns. Mei Lin is a small cough off mic. "Good," the first voice says. "Hazel, let the room hold what it can for you. Separate the child's memory from the house's memory. Where do you feel the heat?" A child voice, a faint content hum under the adult words, half catching a tune. "Good night, Irene, but not yet," a shape of lullaby. A metal snap interrupts the sound a chain makes against a bar. A man's voice off to the side, bland with technical satisfaction. "Second egress secured pending inspection. It'll calm the board." The tape catches a smear of syllables where a name would be. The recorder clicks and eats its own tail, the wheel catching on heat-wrinkled plastic. Maya stabs stock with a hand that has learned restraint and felt terror. "We have enough," Owen says. "We have more than enough." He is right, and she hates him for being right in a place where enough has never been a word. She pulls the 317 tape, tucks it into an envelope, and adds 2 more at random. The vibration in her wrist that started when the bracelet dropped from the vent in Chapter 5, she does not think of her life in chapters, except that she does, settles to something like hunger. The rocking chair makes one sound, not a creak, not a movement, just the air noise you get when something has decided to move and then decides not to. Maya touches the curved runner with 2 fingers. Her head fills with a rocking motion that isn't in her body. Heat climbs her neck like a sun under skin. The flavor of burned sugar is suddenly behind her teeth. And under it all, a woman's voice, not the tape, not the room in her head, gentle. And matter of fact, the way instructions sometimes are when you already know how to behave, singing, "Good night, Irene." She sways before she knows she is moving. Owen's hand lands on her elbow and pulls her back into the present like a crank returning a shelf to neutral. "Hey," he says, "you're here." "I know," she says. "I just was." Above them a valve hammers. A scene gives with a mean little sigh. A plume of steam shoots from a pinhole in a line and fills the room with a white wall that wants to be a memory. In a blink, the chalk becomes cloud. The cassette recorder goes wet with condensation. The floor grate turns slick. "Go," Owen says, the stance of a person moving other bodies out of bars and stairwells in his bones. He shoves the tote at her, throws the crowbar under the valve wheel, and leans his weight to close it. His headlamp beam cuts a shallow arc through living cotton. Maya moves the way you move when your body recognizes a drill. Left hand on wall, right hand forward. Count steps, keep mouth shut. Don't inhale the mistake. The wall is tattooed with call numbers. As her palm skates them, soot kisses her skin and leaves black on her fingertips. When she stops to look, there is nothing there. When she stops looking, the soot returns. She keeps moving, because not every metaphor needs to be recorded in the first pass. The steam thins. Owen grunts the last quarter turn, and the line quiets to a sweat. They are both damp and spotted white, where condensate gathered dust and pasted it to them. "Okay," he says, breath fast. "Okay." At the far end of the room, a sump collects a shallow pool of water, the color of pennies. In the pool lie a security badge and a bent cuff key setter's name, still legible in the lamination. The cuff key bright where force made it new. Maya feels the part of herself that keeps count at a digit She didn't want it to. The badge goes into an envelope. The key, too. They will have to account for both. On the wall beside the door, a gray metal switch box they missed on the way sits flush with concrete. It is ugly in the way expensive things get ugly when they're designed to be unseen. A label maker tape says shelving manual, egress override. The keyhole is not the same shape as any key on Maya's ring. Her hand goes to the pocket where Hazel's Lantern Society card rides. She thinks, stupidly, about shapes, how the lantern pin has a diamond base, how Rawlings is walking around with a burned at Dawson. Healed because Heat keeps finding him. Don't, Owen says gently. Let's not play with God in a room with one door. They back into the service lane, then the catwalk, then the wedge stairs like divers, returning to shallower water. The intercom in the hall exhaled out here, 2-1 soft inward pull, and a whisper that is almost affection. Reshelve her. Maya hears her a different way, now that she knows Evelyn is not only a legend. The pronoun has a gravity. It drags action into itself, like a planet. Hazel waits at the top of the wedge, not blocking the way so much as holding it. She is not surprised to see them. Her cardigan looks like it has been put on as armor. The lantern-shaped brand on her palm is new, faintly pink, too precise to be an accident of an oven wreck. Whatever you have, she says softly, you shouldn't try to carry it alone. Maya considers 5 answers. The one she selects is both sincere and a test. How much of this is yours? Hazel's gaze slides to the seam where the panel refuses to sit flush. If you are asking whether I believed we could coax a person's memories to live in a room so they could be cataloged, yes, I believe that. She looks back at Maya, and it hurts. If you are asking whether we chained a second door to make the result cleaner, my answer is no. If you have an answer on tape, you should play it for everyone. The admission lands like a card played from the bottom of a deck. Evelyn Hart? Maya asks. No title. No voice disguise. Hazel looks like a person remembering a number she used to say at banking windows. She was very brave, she says. Very clever. She came to us with a problem and a belief we could fix it. She didn't like to leave her child in rooms. Neither did I. Something in her mouth remembers sugar and smoke. When the fire came, Hazel stops trying to grade the word and lets it arrive. She died trying to reach you. There is not a day I have not written that line in my head. Maya has lived a long time without the word mother meaning anything. It does not arrive as comfort. It arrives as a book being set on her chest. She chooses a sentence that can bear its own weight. Then don't seal me again. Hazel sees what she means and blinks like a person who walked into a familiar room and found a different painting on the wall. Rawlings has called campus police, she says, because now that she has chosen to say something that matters, she must go directly to logistics or stop. He believes you have stolen records. He believes you'll embarrass donors. He will call you unstable in an email that will sound like care. I have tapes, Maya says. Then you have time, but not much. Hazel steps aside. I would like not to be the villain of your life, she adds without looking at either of them, and Maya almost laughs because the sentence is too decent for the night it lives in. The sirens are already a color in the air. You don't hear them as sound first in a building like this. You feel them in the underfloor. The donor's portrait in the rotunda gleams with the kind of light the sky pretends I send sunrise. Owen tilts his head toward the service hall. We go out the loading bay, straight shot past Cora, he says. We give you a head start to cut the audio and a cleaner route. I'll let them ask me nice questions. Rawlings thinks I can be made to escort. He's not wrong. You'll be on tape saying that later, Maya says. I can live with tape, he says. It's the writing I hate. They move together, the way you carry a heavy object between two people who have not practiced lifting together and are trying not to drop it. The totes with tapes are heavier than their plastic says. The room tries to make them lighter by making their legs weaker. In the loading bay, the air smells like rain that hasn't been permitted. Cora stands beyond the glass with a coffee cup and a face that doesn't look like a microphone. She breathes once and lowers her eyes, the signal they built. She is recording, and she has only ears. Maya pauses at the threshold, because narrative habit is a kind of physics. She looks back down the staff hall. The exit light at the far end blinks 2 pause 3 pause 1 in the slow, patient Morse of a building that has learned it can send letters. She writes 231 on her palm, with a pen that has run out 3 times this shift and keeps producing ink anyway. We're going to have to broadcast, she says. Half to Owen, half to the intercom that has been practicing exhaling words for 2 nights. At the desk, Owen says. Or better, Mez 5. The intercom branch there feeds the whole building when the routing loop is set. I can get you 2 minutes. 3 if Rawlings is busy trying to decide what empathetic means. Hazel's voice follows them down the hall, not in order, not a plea, something that sounds like a job title and a grace note at once. Don't let them put you back. Maya doesn't promise. Promises are files. Files can be stolen. Instead, she touches the tote full of tapes like a person checking her pulse and nods. On the way out, they pass the rocking chair room, 1 flight of air above it. For a half second, the floor under her feet tilts with the measured sway of someone who rocked a child rather than leave. And the line of goodnight, Irene threads the air one more time like a hem. When the first blue lights rake the north windows, Maya is already at the desk with the cassette the evidence sleeves. The knowledge that her name was written in a ledger that forgot to tell the truth, and a building that has decided it can be an archive for what no one was ever supposed to hear. She sets the tape by the intercom switch like a coin on a scale. We'll file it, she tells the hum. We'll reshelve her. The intercom exhales yes. By 6:40, the library looks like it's pretending to wake. Custodial lights bleed out at the edges. The public doors are still locked, but the morning has its key in them. Blue washes flicker against the north window's campus police, idling like a decision. At the service desk, Maya lays out what she and Owen dragged up from the lab. The 317 cassette, 2 more tapes, Sutter's badge and bent cuff key, the lantern charm, the bracelet with the fused M&L. Each has an evidence sleeve. Each has a note in her pencil hand, which is steadier than she feels. Owen arrives already breathing like he has been walking too fast and talking too calmly. Routing panel at Mez 5 still ties into the building's all call, he says low. You jack the cassette into that mic loop. You'll hit every floor. Rawlings will try to pull the main. The intercom's on a separate battery for fire code. We'll have a minute, maybe 2. Hazel steps in behind him, pale and ironed. The faint lantern-shaped blush on her palm has darkened to a careful brand. Keys, she says, and lays a ring on the blotter, the Mez chain, intercom panel, routing closet. Do not let him put you back. It is the closest she can come to. I'm with you, while her badge still hangs from her sweater. Rawlings appears as if conjured by a camera. There will be no broadcasts, he says, pleasant as a memo. A contracted guard floats behind him, jaw already saying, sir. Miss Chun, you've had a very long night. Mr. Price, escort her downstairs. And I'll escort, Owen says quickly, and flicks his cuffs in a way that reads compliance from across a room. He winks at Maya like a person who understands costumes. He closes one cuff on her wrist, but leaves it loose enough to slide. The other he clamps around her tote handle. To Rawlings, his voice is sunshine. We'll keep her safe. They pass the Carnegie portrait. For a breath, the glass shows not their faces, but the mezzanine rail angle out of angle, a future reflection. Cora stands at the outer doors with a coffee and a scarf bright as innocence. She doesn't meet Maya's eyes. Her phone sits low in her palm, only ears. At the Mez 5 corridor, Hazel's chain gleams exactly as Maya left it at 1:46. The exit lamp blinks. 231 the building's patient code. Owen rattles the chain for form, then slips the right key in. Wrong key first, right key second. Hazel's ritual reversed. The way you do when you mean to keep the alarm from barking. Pops the clip and hands Maya the intercom keys. He leans in as if cuff-checking and hits talk without depressing the main page. A whisper into the routing closet down the hall. 3, 2. Rawlings' voice fans from the stairwell. Mr. Price, I didn't say up. Just securing Mez. Owen calls back, still cheerful. The shelves in Tier A, half a building away, let out a small purr that sounds like a cat deciding which lap is safest. They move together. Chain off, door open, a wedge of dim aisle like a throat. The Mez 5 intercom box sits in its metal cage, the size of a bread tin, with a battered page button and a dangling quarter-inch jack for a microphone that died in 2008. Owen yanks the mic lead, strips 2 wires with his teeth, and twists them around the cassette player's earbud plug. Primitive, he says. Good. Don't stop, Maya says, because her hands are already moving. 317 into the machine. Play pause. Owen flips the routing to all and nods once, a blessing and a dare. Rawlings rounds the corner with his guard and 2 campus officers who look like they'd rather be keeping skaters off the quad. Ms. Chun, he says, hand open, voice sloped toward care. You don't want to do this. I do, Maya says, and hits pause again. The building hears itself. Tape hiss breathes through the entire library reading rooms, offices, stairwell, the loading bay where Cora listens with her heart in her mouth. Hazel's younger voice fills the air like a remembered rule. Evelyn, when I say room, what do you see? Evelyn Hart, steady and tired. Children's nook. Green rug. Paper lanterns. Mei Lin is a small cough off mic. Good. Separate the child's memory from the house's memory. Where do you feel the heat? Somewhere in the admin corridor, a phone rings and then doesn't. In facilities, a mop pauses mid-arc. In the rotunda, the donor's painted mouth forgets how to smile. The cassette crackles and lets in the other voice, the one that did not know it was being recorded, because men like that do not remember the air can listen. Older male, flattening himself into committee. Second egress secured pending inspection. It'll calm the board. Chain it. We're not losing the data. There is a clink of chain against the bar, and an obsequious yes, sir. The tape judders as if it feels the lie. Hazel closes her eyes like a person hearing a hymn she once liked for the wrong reason. Rawlings goes very still, too still, like a deer deciding which lane is escape and which is car. This is out of context, he says finally, finding his training like a handrail. You're violating privacy. Owen flips the page switch to hold, locking the whole call. Sir, he says, almost tender, you never asked for context until it hurt you. Below them, as if the building has been waiting for a queue line, the compact shelves engage. Not the polite inching of a glitch, not the deliberation of a crank, a verdict. Ranges slide open in a sequence. Maya can read like a line of text from the catwalk. O-P-E-N. From above, lanes stare out into those shapes as clear as type, each end cap stopping on a dime where a safety system ought to. Only this time the safety is for them, not against them. Stay back, the guard barks, because his job makes sense in very simple rooms. Rawlings ignores him. He lunges for the intercom cage, because his job makes sense only if he can put his hand on the switch. Maya steps sideways with the tape, and Owen steps the other way with the routing. The aisle between 2 ranges tightens, and then widens for Maya, a courtesy, a smile. The aisle in front of Rawlings narrows a deliberate inch. He shoves the safety bar with his knee. The hum does not care for him. This system is manual. He shouts, because if you repeat a phrase enough in meetings, it becomes a fact. The lantern pin he pocketed earlier talisman. Hubris falls from his jacket as he lunges. It hits the steel with a sound like a bead dropped in church. Arthur, Hazel says, the exact tone you use on a child headed into a glass door. He does not hear her. The ranges shudder again, and then move clean. The guard curses and grabs Rawlings' arm, but the gap is already the size of a lie and closing. The sound is not gory. It is a machine fulfilling an instruction, a press that does not know bones from books. Maya looks away on purpose and watches the pin roll to stop at the lip of the rail instead, a tiny warm dot that burned and branded and now has nowhere to go. The guard shouts. One of the officers says Jesus too softly to count as prayer. When the shelves stop, what they hold is hidden by steel. The only proof of a man is the tube of burn cream still in the seam, buckled in the middle as if bitten. Cora's phone catches sound, not image the hum. Hazel's no, the clamp, the little tink of the pin. Outside, a handful of students watch the windows and don't know what they are seeing, only that something is finally happening in a building that always promised it was full of stories. Maya keeps her hand on the page. The tape keeps its own time. Evelyn's voice returns, small but intact inside the machine. Maylin is, and for the first time it isn't a cough, but a word almost born. Here, the air seems to say she is here. As if agreeing, the shelving at the far end of the mezzanine shivers and recedes, revealing a back panel no one ever wrote on the diagram. A wooden chute drops open like a trapdoor in a stage. Dust feathers up in a private weather. Inside, charred fabric, a suggestion of ribs in ash. The silver glint of a lantern pin fused to a chain, not a spectacle. A remains. Something the building has kept in its mouth a long time and is finally willing to spit into daylight. Hazel stops breathing audibly. Then she starts again, ragged, as if she has been underwater. Evelyn, she says to the chute, to the air, to the woman she didn't save and won't stop trying to reshelve. The officers move because body training is a kind of law. They call it in. They mark the area. Nobody says ghost. Everyone says evidence. The intercom hums like a throat between songs. Maya uses the breath the building gives her and puts a sentence into it. This is Mezzanine 5, she says, and the speakers make her sound like a person inside every room. We have a record. We have a name. We have a body. The second exit was chained. The tapes are secure. We are making the catalog public. Owen toggles page off. The hum drops. The shelves finish spelling open and sit like they have always been that shape. Hazel, who has not moved from where her feet learned truth, turns slowly to face the officers. I will give a statement, she says. She does not correct herself to say context. And I will give you the tapes you need. Maya hands the 317 cassette to the officer with the cleanest eyes, and the least assumptions, and keeps a duplicate she made while the steam was pouring, tucked in her sleeve like insurance. She places Sutter's badge in the same hands and says, he went missing on radio. The officer nods the kind of nod that says, we will find a name for the space between missing and dead later. Downstairs, Cora sends audio to 3 backups and writes a 1-sentence post she'll expand at noon. Dunbridge Library. Tapes reveal second exit chained in 1997. Remains recovered. Statement incoming. Audio here. Her pulse is a metronome at 317, as she doesn't know why until Maya texts, timestamp on tapes. Cora adds it. Rawlings is not in the picture anymore. He is behind steel, which is a metaphor Maya will not use, because one of the things you learn in archives is that not every convenient symmetry is honest. She watches the pin that burned him instead. She picks it up in gloved fingers and lays it in an envelope with the bracelet, because currency belongs in files, not pockets. Hazel moves to the routing and flips a L2 local because her hands know where the buttons are even now. She looks like someone who has decided to be the kind of librarian the past needs, not the kind the board asks for. Leave Mez 5.5 open in your memo, she says to Maya without looking. Do not let them seal it with fire tape and a benevolent paragraph. We'll reshelve her, Maya says, and means Evelyn, and also the truth, and also her own name. The exit light at the end of the mezzanine blinks one pause, one yes, like the building has learned a very small, polite version of applause. Outside, sirens give way to headlines. Inside, officers do what they do with recovered remains. Owen stands by the yawning chute with his shoulders trying to be a wall until the moment they don't have to be. He looks at Maya the way people look at a friend's face after a bad night and a good decision. 2 minutes 58, he says, half a grin. Told you we had time. She laughs a sound that doesn't sound like laughter yet and feels the building relax its hum a fraction, like a singer lowering a key to something human. When they walk back past the Carnegie portrait, its glass has stopped pretending to be anything but glass. For one beat, the eyes in the paint are not looking at Maya at all. They are looking at the ceiling in the direction of 5.5, with the exact complicated expression of an old donor portrait deciding whether to survive this century by telling the truth about the last one. Maya does not look up to follow. She looks at the evidence sleeves in her hands, at the cassette's neat label, at the bracelet with 2 letters that are 2/3 a person. She breathes once the way you breathe when your body realizes it has survived the thing you built the night around. We'll be here, she tells the intercom, and the intercom exhale answers, soft and content, and possibly a warning. By 7, the blue outside has turned into weather. The building stops pretending to sleep and begins pretending to be fine. Crime scene tape makes a neat rectangle around the mezzanine 5 chute. An officer with a calm voice photographs Evelyn Hart's effects where they lay. A fused lantern pin, a shred of charred fabric, the suggestion of ribs that isn't for library records. The medical examiner works with a quiet that almost counts as respect. Every time the shutter clicks, the intercom exhales like a throat, remembering how to sing. Maya does paperwork. It's what she can control. She titles a new collection in the accession system, HART, EVELYN Recovery Documentation, 19972-025. Scope: audio evidence, cassette transfers, staff statements, photographs, facilities logs, routing diagrams, media coverage, administrative correspondence. Restrictions: none. Mezzanine 5.5 open by appointment. Cameras on. NO reproduction limits beyond privacy law. She doesn't list remains. Those belong to the coroner and the family that will have to be found, but she lists everything else with an archivist-esque violence. Exact, unemotional, irrefusable. An all-campus email lands like the thud of a large book. Interim notice from the provost. It acknowledges a tragic loss of a colleague. Evidence recovered, deep sorrow for a long-ago incident, and a temporary administrative leave for Hazel Whitcomb pending investigation. There are no donors in the sentence that thanks donors for their steadfast support. There is a new interim dean, as of 10 minutes ago. Hazel arrives with an officer at either shoulder, not arrested, not free. She looks like a librarian at closing, tired past anger. The faint lantern-shaped brand on her palm has darkened to a small geography. She has put away her pin. She sets a key ring on the desk's special collections. Mez rooting. The safe, and looks not at the officers, but at Maya. Whatever offers they make, she says, voice fine as onion paper, make yours first. In writing. Maya thinks of the point, a 1 sheet she gave back, and the 2 she kept, of what Hazel did and didn't do. We won't seal 5.5, she says. Hazel nods once, the motion of someone accepting a verdict they asked for. When the officers guide her toward HR, she doesn't resist. She pauses under the intercom and tips her face up. The speaker breathes once, soft, like a child forgiving someone for failing to be a god. Outside, Cora posts the first clean piece, a 2-minute audio of 317, plus a paragraph that refuses adjectives. It travels the way rumor always wanted to travel and never could. Straight, tagged, archived. Students gather on the steps with paper lanterns they made in residence halls out of printer paper and string. No speeches. Someone hums, "Good night, Irene," under their breath until 3 more people find the tune and stop, embarrassed by how much it hurts. Owen Ferry's chain of custody, Sutter's badge, the bent cuff key, the duplicate Mayan made of the 317, tape on his way past IT. Make me a WAV while you pretend I'm not here. He keeps count because someone has to. He counts officers and pins, and how many times the building decides to be merciful to Maya's footfalls. He stands by the chute until the stretcher goes by and doesn't say sorry out loud. Before 9, the interim dean arrives with legal and the brittle cheer of someone who would like this to be over. "Ms. Chun," she says, "we would like you to consider stepping in as acting head of special collections." The contract she sets down is warm, like it came off a laser printer. Salary, start date, morals clause forbidding publication that might damage donor relationships. Maya circles the paragraph with a pencil that writes harder than she intends. "Strike this," she says. Add, "No donor or advancement restriction shall limit public access to non-private records related to safety or institutional wrongdoing." Add, "Mezzanine 5.5 remains accessible." No resealing, no euphemism. Add, "Authority control favors truth over comfort." She keeps her voice even. She doesn't apologize for asking. She's past that part of the night. Legal opens their mouths and closes them. Public pressure sits on the table with the contract like an extra hand. The interim dean inhales for time. "Initial your changes," she says finally. "We'll take the hit we earned." Maya initials. She signs. She is not surprised by how much it feels like filing. Down in 5.5, facilities hangs 2 fixed domes for camera coverage, while Maya writes the finding aid. She adds a front-page note. The library acknowledges institutional participation in experiments conducted without adequate oversight and in a subsequent misrepresentation of a fire event. This collection remains open. She knows the words won't be enough, but she also knows paper is how institutions remember better than people. By noon, the chute has been boarded for the afternoon only, not hidden open in painter's tape on raw plywood, because the library has learned to spell. A facilities tech stands guard. He looks at the tape and looks at Maya and decides to like her later. Midday brings small procedural mercies. Family liaison finds a heart relative across 2 states who says they've been waiting for a call like this for 28 years. The ME says they'll confirm with dental. Campus police ask Maya for a quiet room. She gives them special collections, and the intercom, merciful, stays asleep. Advancement tries to send over a statement that uses legacy 3 times. Maya writes back a line. Legacy isn't an alibi. They don't reply. At 4, someone from media services appears at the desk with a receipt and 2 new dictation megs. "For the tape transfers," he says, and sets them down like flowers. At 5, custodial leaves 4 small flameless candles on the service counter, without note, and a stack of printer paper circles folded into lanterns. The building smells briefly of lemon oil, dust, and the ghost of burned sugar. At 6, the building clears out. The tape lines hold. The open tape sign looks temporary and determined. The exit lamp at the far end of Mezzanine 5 blinks 1 pause 1 and then rests, as if the building, too, has earned sitting down. Maya stays. Work has an ache that feels like being alive. She transfers the 317 cassette to digital, the hiss there like a sea under the voices, and creates a public item with 2 metadata notes. Chain second egress. Per audio. Broadcast 0822. She prints a clean accession note for the bracelet and the lantern pin, with a line in the description she doesn't know the style guide for and writes anyway. Recovered from vent and chute. Returned to evidence. Described here so they won't vanish. As the sky goes the color of carbon paper, the OPAC glitches once. A new subject heading appears and blinks for one heartbeat. Chun, Maya, apparitions influence on. She watches it long enough to be sure it's there, then watches it revert to the catalog's normal, stubborn taxonomy. She does not screen cap it. She writes it in her spiral as if it were a dream, and then files the spiral in a box labeled working notes, because dreams are part of the record. She carries a banker's box to 5.5 and sets it on the catwalk, the first inch of a reading room where none was supposed to be. Inside, a copy of the finding aid, 2 pairs of gloves, a pencil, a printed map of the tunnels with the words burn and hush circled, and a typed card that reads, "Please keep the aisle clear." The stacks decide. She stands there too long, breathing the wire and water smell and waiting for a rocking chair in the room below to move. It doesn't. The quiet is not indifferent. It's satisfied. On her way back through Tier A, books on the middle row of 133.1 stick out their 4 edges like tongues. She pushes them flush in a line and finds, after 3, after 5, after a small rearrangement, that the titles she squared now read in sequence. Thank you 2 books tilt themselves back out a fraction, just enough to make a crooked. Maya laughs, the small, honest kind. Both are true, she says. She pulls her chair to the desk and writes the last page of the day. Accession note, closing. Donor, the building. Condition, active. Action, reshelved with truth. The intercom hums once, pleased. Somewhere far under the floor, a chair rocks exactly once. Not a lure this time, not a trap, just a gesture. The elevator dings from a floor that doesn't exist and opens to an empty car that smells faintly of children's books and lemon oil. Maya switches off the task lamp. I'll be here, she tells the stacks. The exit light blinks 1 pause, 1 yes, and holds.